Good evening, everyone, and welcome to your council chambers. It's our regular council meeting this evening for Wednesday, April the 24th. So I'd like to welcome everybody here this evening, also those that are watching online, staff and members of council. This meeting is being audio and video recorded and live streamed on the Town of Innisfil's YouTube channel and shall form part of the record, which will be retained according to the town's retention bylaw. If you want more information about that bylaw, you can please contact the clerk's office. If anyone does have their cellular device with them tonight, if I could please ask if you could just check and make sure that it's either on silent or turned off so it doesn't interrupt our meeting, that would be very much appreciated. I'd now please like to ask Councillor Waters to deliver our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Town of Innisfil acknowledges that Innisfil is situated on treaty land that is steeped in Indigenous history. The town also acknowledges that this land is the traditional territories of First People of Turtle Island. It is shared between the Anishinaabe peoples of Beaujolais First Nation, Chippewas of Rama First Nation, and Chippewas of Georgina First Island Nation, and we thank them for their generations of stewardship. This meeting place is still home to many Indigenous people, and as settlers, we gratefully acknowledge the opportunity to work on this land. The town acknowledges the forced sacrifices that are the foundation of Canadian society today. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect for all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. And just before we begin, I just would note that if anybody is here to hear debate on the Friday Harbour noise exemption request that was deferred from the April 3rd meeting, it is not on tonight's agenda, and it will move forward on the May the 8th, 2024 meeting. So item number 2 is our open forum, and we had no one sign up for our open forum this evening. So we'll move to item 3, which is the approval of tonight's agenda. Could I please have a recommendation to approve the contents of the agenda as printed? Councillor Constantine, Councillor Waters. Any agenda repair required this evening? Any amendments required? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Next, I'll ask members of council if they have any disclosures of pecuniary or conflict of interest on tonight's agenda. Seeing none, if one becomes apparent to you through the meeting, please let us know at that time, and we'll have the clerk's office send you the appropriate documents to sign. And our next item is presentations and petitions. And tonight we're very fortunate to have with us Tanisha Thomas, who is the City of Barrie's 4th Poet Laureate to be crowned, and the first Black Poet Laureate. Tanisha is also known as Ty the Poetist and has vowed herself to be the people's poet. The arts and culture community has also crowned Ty as the most community-involved Poet Laureate thus far because of her attendance at public events. And I would have to concur with that because she came all the way to Innisfil to see us tonight. We're very much appreciative of you spending some time with us as April is National Poetry Month. So please welcome Ty.
Thank you. Just trying to figure this out. I think we're okay. So thank you for having me. Yes, April is National Poetry Month, and it was first established in 1998 by the League of Canadian Poets. So the theme this year is weather, so I would encourage you guys all to write a poem if you feel inspired, talking about weather and how life has its cycles, its seasons, how we go through storms, but somehow we always make it through and see the light. So this year I wanted to share a poem that talks about why I wanted to be a poet laureate and why I vowed to be the people's poet. When I first became Barrie's poet laureate, I vowed to be the people's poet. Not just because I liked a crown being placed on my head and the prestigious title being given to me, but because being a voice for people who are often not heard or listened to is important to me. As the people's poet, I can speak up for the ones who are silenced and turned voiceless. As the people's poet, my words can bring purpose to the ones who thought their journey in life was pointless. Although I often read alone, I'm a voice representing our community, a voice consisting of many important identities: the single mothers, the divorced, the immigrants, the minorities, the disabled people, both physically and mentally. I'm a voice that can bring hope to all of the beautiful souls living in our community. So when I write or speak, it's not just about me. It's about how I can use this voice to bring us all closer together like a family. Through poetry, I will lead the many who choose to follow me to a place engulfed in equality, diversity, love, and kindness, a place where we choose to move forward with positivity and forgiveness. I write with hope because we live in a world that is often covered in hopelessness. I read my poems out loud because I've often felt silenced. Through all the pain and all the darkness that can be experienced in life, I still choose to write. Writer's block cannot stop me. Writer's block cannot and will not stop me because I am the people's poet. And it is never just about me. I do not write poetry selfishly. I write to inspire, I write to uplift. I write to ignite the fire within the citizens in Barrie and Innisfil who feel as though they have lost it. I write for my daughter and all the children and all the youth being raised here. Each generation has a responsibility to the next, so I write with conviction. Intention is found in my text. I write so that my daughter and the youth may grow and eat ripe fruit right here. I write because I choose to live and run to the light instead of walking in fear. When I first became Barrie's Poet Laureate, I vowed to be the people's poet, not just because I liked the crown being placed on my head and the prestigious title being given to me, but because being a voice for people who are often not heard or listened to is important to me. As the people's poet, I can speak up for the ones who were silenced and turned voiceless. As the people's poet, my words can bring purpose to the ones who thought their journey in life was pointless. Although I often read alone, I am a voice representing our community, a voice consisting of many important identities. Thank you.
Thank you so much for visiting us, Ty, and thank you for your very timely and thoughtful words. Very much appreciated.
Thanks so much.
So could I please have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the poem recital by Tanisha Thomas be received? Councillor Constantine and Deputy Mayor Fowler. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Don't feel like you have to stay for the whole meeting in case your daughter wants to get home. Thank you. Next is item 6, our delegations by members of the public and invited guests. And today, under 6.1, we have Jag Najar, property owner representative, and Jamie Robinson, partner at MHBC, who are going to make a presentation to us. Welcome, Jag, and welcome, Jamie.
Thank you, Your Worship. That is a very tough act to follow. I'm really nervous now. Good evening, Your Worship and councillors. My name is Jagtar Niger. I'm the Executive Vice President for Gateway Casinos and Entertainment. I'm here on behalf of the 265 team members at our Gateway Innisfil location. To start this evening, I'd like to provide you an introduction and an overview to Gateway Casinos. Gateway has been a leader in the entertainment and gaming and entertainment industry for over 30 years. We're a proud Canadian company based out of British Columbia. Today, we operate 31 casinos nationally. We have operated the location in Innisfil since July of 2018. In Ontario, we have 14 properties across the province, some of which have been renovated, relocated, refurbished, including some of our properties in North Bay, Wasaga Beach, Hanover, Point Edward, Sarnia, and Chatham. Recently, we've started a major renovation program at our casino in London and Casino Ranelagh, just to the north of us. As part of these refurbishments, we have introduced multiple new food and beverage outlets and other amenities that move casino gaming away from what we call slots in a box. It provides a full entertainment experience for our new and existing customers. Our goal in Innisfil is to provide the same full entertainment experience to this dynamic growing community, our residents and tourists. To accomplish that goal, Gateway has recently acquired a 25-acre parcel of land at 239 Reeve Boulevard. This site is at the northwest corner of the Innisfil Creek Golf Course. It's near the Tangiers Outlet Mall and south of our existing location. Subject to municipal and provincial regulatory approvals, we plan to relocate our existing operation to a purpose-built facility. The proposed facility, although not yet designed, will accommodate 3 to 4 food and beverage outlets, including some of our signature brands. It will feature table games and slots in quantities to meet customer demand. There's also a potential for an attached hotel. Once completed, we anticipate bringing on an additional 200 team members to work with us on the day-to-day operations. This in addition to the economic impact of the construction. We will be seeking City Council support for an MZO application. Our design development team will work closely with city staff to ensure our site satisfies all relevant requirements. We'll also work with city staff on an appropriate public engagement process. We expect that our facility will open in conjunction with the expiry of our lease at our current location. There's a lot of work ahead of us, but it's a lot of fun for us. We look forward to this exciting project and we'll share more details as they become available as we finalize our plans. We'll work through this together and we'll come back to council. We'll gladly come back to council to provide further updates. Thank you for having me. I'd like to turn the presentation over to our planner, Jamie Robinson, who will provide details on the site itself.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. Thanks for having us tonight. And as Jag mentioned, my name is Jamie Robinson. I'm a partner with MHBC Planning, and we're based in Barrie. The subject lands, as you're likely aware, is a portion of the Innisfil Creek Golf Course. It's located just north of Highway 89 and the 400 interchange, which is a unique and a very heavily traveled intersection within both your township and Simcoe County. It's really a gateway to the town of Innisfil, if you will. From a locational perspective, that's one of the reasons this site was selected. We also see it as potentially providing, through future updates to the town's official plan, an opportunity for future commercial development in proximity to that interchange. There's some existing uses there currently, with the outlet mall that's currently there, the KOA campground, the truck stop, and you've got the stockyards located to the west, and Cookstown Autos. There are some existing uses in the area that could be further expanded, and that this could really provide a node for additional commercial uses and a gateway node into the town of Innisfil. Currently, you see a lot of economic dollars leave the community to other areas, be it Barrie, Alliston, Bradford, and we see this as the potential start of an area to keep investment dollars within the town of Innisfil. In terms of the proposal, as Jag mentioned, what's being proposed here would be to relocate the existing casino facility with also the opportunity for a hotel, and he mentioned the idea is to include 3 restaurants as part of the gaming facility as well. This is a proposed conceptual site plan as part of the exercise that's being undertaken right now. We have completed, or there has been a completion of a number of supporting studies, both from a functional servicing perspective, environmental perspective, hydrogeological, and hazard-related studies and traffic studies, obviously. So there's a number of complementary studies that are in the almost finalized or have been finalized currently. In terms of the request, why we're here before council tonight is to request that you refer this issue back to staff, and that staff proceed with a recommendation report to council at a subsequent meeting on whether council would support Gateway Casinos in their request to the province for a minister's zoning order. When a minister's zoning order request is made to the province, it needs to be supportive, or it's beneficial to be supported by a letter of support from the local council, and that's really what we're here to introduce the project tonight. Ask that it be referred back to staff, that staff can prepare a recommendation report that outlines some of the key issues for you as a council to consider in whether you lend your support to this proposal going forward. Why an MZO? So the big question, why not the standard planning process of an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment? Why are we making the request to the province for an MZO, and why are we looking for your support on this? There's a few reasons for this. MZOs, it's been a hot topic at the government level, at the provincial government level lately. We've seen more of these applications in the last, I'll say 3 years than we saw in the previous 30 years before that. The really design for these MZOs originally was for land uses that make sense at that current location where the lands aren't currently designated and zoned for that use. Typically, it's related to a large employer. Often it could be for a major housing development if there's a clear public interest in that. But these MZOs originally, when the casinos first came to Ontario, many of them were done by MZO, including the current facility, as well as major employers, such as if Honda was expanding or if there's a new auto manufacturer. Municipalities don't have lands designated for these sorts of major employers, and that's one of the reasons for MZOs. So the key here is it's a major employment generator for the community. We believe that the proposed use is compatible with the surrounding land uses in the area. Compatibility is one of the key land use planning considerations for any planning application. The site is, although it's a golf course currently, it's also zoned for a higher order use today. For example, permitted uses as of right on this site include a movie theater. So you could have a large scale movie theater on this site based on the current tourist commercial zoning. So there are a number of uses that are permitted as of right. And it's our opinion that the proposed casino use isn't dissimilar to one of those permitted uses that's on the site already from a land use planning perspective and a traffic generation perspective and an impact perspective, that it's similar in relation to those uses. From a location perspective, this is obviously one of the, I think the busiest, likely the busiest intersection, or in proximity to the busiest intersection in Innisfil, if not close to the busiest intersection in the county. And it really provides, again, a gateway into your community. The other real reason why this request is being made is Gateway has some timing limitations associated with their current lease and in association with their project timelines. And going through a standard planning process, an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, would not allow them to achieve those timing requirements. I would like to also make it clear that as we work through this process, there is a site plan approval process that we're interested. The MZO process does allow for applications to be exempt from site plan approval. We're not seeking that exemption. We're looking to work with the town of Innisfil through the standard site plan control process as part of this exercise. In terms of next steps, we'd like to continue working with the town staff on the site plan piece. Technical studies, some have been completed, others are nearing completion, and we would provide that to town staff as part of our submission on the site plan application. We again are seeking your direction to refer this back to staff for a future report, and we're hoping that in a subsequent council meeting you will consider that request. So I do, on behalf of JAG and the Gateway team, would like to thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation tonight, and we hope that you will consider referring this item back to staff, and we hope to see you at a future meeting as well. So if there's any questions, JAG and myself would do our best to try to answer those for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Jag and Jamie. Questions from members of committee? Councillor Drodge?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks for the presentation, and I'm looking forward to having more conversations about this. I'm super excited that you chose that location for your casino. Just for some clarification, this whole project has nothing to do with the South Innisfil drain. All your works and everything are outside of the South Innisfil drain, if I'm correct. Is that right?
Through Your Worship, that's correct.
Councillor Richardson.
Thanks for the presentation. I'm just curious, actually, for your, on the plan where it says future expansion, would that possibly be like a concert hall to do concerts and stuff? Because that would be great.
No, the intention is to be, if the gaming market dictates, we would build additional gaming facilities, room for gaming.
Nice try, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Waters.
Thank you very much for the presentation. My question is that the site right now, I've golfed on the site and I know how many water holes there are, which I hit many of them. I'm just kind of curious, what happens to the landscape that is there now? Is there some problems that the amount of water that's on that site is going to cause for the development of the casino?
Through your worship to the councillor, this area of the site is one of the higher areas of this site, I'll say, and there's not the number of water features that there are on other areas. One thing I should have mentioned in my presentation is that we're not seeking any relief from any environmental pieces as part of this. And I should have also mentioned that we have a First Nations consultation strategy that we're working on as well. So we are intending to maintain a 30-meter setback from all water courses so that we can respect the current vegetation preservation zone requirements that are outlined in the growth plan. Obviously, there's been proposed changes to that document through the new provincial planning statement, but there has been detailed hydrogeological work completed for the site and the proposal. There's been detailed flood hazard and flood erosion work done associated with the development proposal, and all the supporting studies do support development at the site. There was a lot of work that went in before Gateway Casinos considered the purchase of the property to make sure that this site could support the level of development that's being considered here.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Two questions come to mind. Are you going to be working in conjunction with the town with the servicing of the employment lands, or are you going to be tapping into the system as it currently stands? And you mentioned the time frame. What is this time frame that you make? Like, what is, without the MZO, what kind of delay would we be looking at, and what kind of time frame would it be that would hinder you so?
Jamie.
Through your worship to the Deputy Mayor. So firstly, the first question relates to servicing. There's a functional servicing report that's been completed, and we're looking at a number of different options for servicing, both permanent and temporary options based on the exercises that the town and in-services is undertaking with respect to future servicing options. So there's a number of considerations on the table right now with respect to that. And there's obviously timing considerations. So there's no concrete definitive approach yet, but it's being worked on in consultation with town staff and in-services. Sorry, what was the second?
I can talk to them.
You mentioned the
timing.
time. Sorry, yes.
Okay.
Talk about building.
You want me to?
Yeah, you talk.
Sorry. So in terms of timeline, the hope and Gateway's timing requirements is that there would be seeking building permits towards the end of this year. So it's a quite aggressive time period. And that's why the standard planning process that through official plan amendments and zoning bylaw amendments, which includes, that standard planning process includes substantial timelines for review, but it also has the opportunity for third-party appeals potentially as well, which could significantly impact timing requirements.
Anyone else? Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Madam. I actually have two questions. If Great Canadian pulls out of Innisfil, would you guys consider purchasing it? And second of all, you have a timeline for the casino. Do you have a timeline or for your future date for the hotel?
We don't know that, Councillor Mayor, we are not aware that Great Canadian is trying to sell, but it depends on the number, really. We won't talk about hypotheticals. With respect to, sorry, I missed the second part of the question.
Just about the hotel, you have a 2028. Do you have a timeline for the hotel?
Our intention is to to find a hotel partner that would develop concurrent with us. It may be shortly after, but we'd want to do that. I don't like to leave a property half-finished.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Councillor Dodge.
Just around timing on that hotel, I know that wastewater could be a concern with this project, just in timing to get it out there in time. Are you willing to work with like a traditional septic system to get it up and running, to allow the town some time to tie in our wastewater?
Through your worship to the councillor, that's one of the options that's being considered through the functional servicing report amongst a number of different options, but that's on the table.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of council? I just want to thank you both for coming tonight and providing us this introduction. And as you mentioned, then hopefully with the recommendation from council to go back to staff for more investigation and report back. We've had a very good relationship with Gateway Casino since Gateway was awarded this bundle. And obviously, you know, through OLG and having the casino in Innisfil has been able to generate a lot of revenue that we've been able to invest back into the community, over $100 million since the casino was first opened. So it is a very important part of Innisfil and how way that we can supply some things that we maybe typically couldn't afford to give to our residents without. So it's important to us to keep this opportunity within our borders. As far as MZOs go, Minister's Zoning Orders, there's been a lot of media and press around them over the last couple of years, most of it negative. I will say since my time as mayor, we've approved 3 MZOs here in the town of Innisfil, one for seniors retirement affordable home, one for a GO train station, and one for a hospital. So all 3 are MZOs that all of our current council and our former council stand behind. One of the big complaints about MZOs typically is the lack of consultation with residents. So could you describe a little bit about consultation with residents, regardless of the fact that it's a minister's zoning order?
Yeah. We believe in full transparency. So the more people know about it, the more people have the opportunity to comment, the better for the process, in our view. We've had multiple consultations on other projects, and we're happy to continue that here.
Thank you for that. So I ask for a mover and a seconder, please. I'm going to ask for I'm going to ask if somebody would please move a minor adjustment to the recommendation that the delegation regarding the request for an MZO for a portion of the lands located at 239 Reed Boulevard be received and referred to staff for consideration and report back. Moved by Councillor Dodge, seconded by Councillor Zanella. Any final questions or comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here with us tonight. Much appreciated.
Thanks very much.
And next we have item 7, which is any boards, commissions, committees that you've been assigned to represent from this council. Any reports out on any of those items? Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Thank you, Worship. We haven't had a chance to meet with County Council since the last term, or the last meeting, sorry. So basically it's all been local. We've had 2 meetings with the Heritage Advisory Committee. On April 4th, there was a great discussion about streamlining the process to gain as many designations as possible, reaching out to as many residents as possible. The deadline for the cutoff for Bill 23 is approaching rapidly, and January 1st is just a blink away. So we're working on the process now where we basically try to find who's the most receptive and what we can do for the betterment of the town in that regard. On April 16th, we sat down with Sixth Line Cemetery and presented the pros about designation. There was a situation in East Gwillimbury with one of our members, a situation where 20, nearly 30 years ago, they designated their cemetery, and when a developer came in and wanted to build right next to them, it gave them the power to get them to the table a little easier, so to speak, because if, for example, you have a depot beside a cemetery, you don't want the headstones covered in soot, you don't want the vibration sinking the stones, you don't want anything to potentially damage a heritage piece of property. So we provided them with a presentation, and we've let them go discuss amongst themselves, and hopefully they return and agree to what we're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any boards or commissions that they'd like to report out on? Seeing none, none that I really want to highlight at this time. Most of the meetings that I had were just regular business. I would say, though, that both the Association of Municipalities in Ontario and the Ontario Small Urban Municipalities met, and we're looking forward to a conference starting next week, I believe. It starts on the May 1st. And also this morning, the Police Services Board met, and we will be hosting Police Week on May the 11th from 1 to 4 here at the North Division. If anybody wants to come out, they'll have lots of presentations. The drone will be there. All the different tactical teams will be there, and it's great for kids to attend as well. Seeing no other, we'll go now to our consent list. So for those that haven't attended before, the consent list comes with staff reports and staff recommendations on every item. If council is happy with the staff recommendation and has no questions, it'll simply go to the end of the meeting for confirmation. But this is item where if they want to pull to ask more questions or to maybe change or amend a recommendation, it will happen and we'll go into committee of the whole so we can debate it more fulsomely. So we'll start with adoption of minutes. A1, the special council meeting minutes from March 27th. A2, the council meeting minutes from March 27th. A3, the council meeting minutes from April the 3rd. B1, the Innisfil Heritage Advisory Committee meeting. B2, the April 9th Innisfil Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting. And then we'll go to staff reports for action. C1, the 2024 final tax levy bylaw. C2, the 2025-26 budget schedule and process. Could I ask somebody if they'd please pull that just so we can have some further discussions around timelines for the budget process? Councillor Zanella, thank you. C3, 1176 second line zoning bylaw amendment application. Councillor Drodge.
I'd like to pull that to committee of the whole, please.
Thank you. C4, the filing of the final engineer's report for the Hewitts Creek drainage works, the Innisfil Beach Road realignment. Seeing none, the C5, the deeming bylaw application for Leslie Drive lot merger. And then we'll go to the Ds. D1 is the 2023 accessibility status report. There's no E's, there's no bylaws. And F1, that would be ICE Corp, Innisfil Community Events Corporation, Municipal Significant Event Designation for the Innisfil Onion Fest. And then another musical significant event designation for Gussapalooza is F2. All right, and then we go to correspondence for information. Is there any of those items that you wish to pull? Seeing none, then we'll move to the consent list recommendation, please. So we have the two items that have been referred to committee. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Waters. All those in favor? That is carried. And now we'll resolve to committee of the whole with a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Drodge. All those in favor? That is carried. Bless you. Thank you. And then we'll go to the first item of business, which was the 2025-2026 budget schedule and process. Thank you. So that's moved by Councillor Zanella and seconded by Councillor Drodge. So I wanted to pull this just basically to highlight it for residents, the process we're going through. Here in Innisfil, unlike most municipalities, we operate on a 2-year budget. So the last time this council passed a budget was in 2022. And I guess it was 2023 by the time we passed it. So we're coming to the end of that 2-year cycle, and we're ready to start the 2025-2026 budget schedule. So I just wondered if our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Melanishin, could just walk us through a little bit of what that process is like and when residents can get involved in their budget process.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. We do, as you mentioned, we do a multi-year budget. It's a 2-year operating budget and a 2-year capital budget with an 8-year forecast. These years, the year building up to the budget is an exciting year for staff. It is a time-consuming year, and the finance team absolutely love this year of pre-budget prep. So, very, very excited to work forward through this with council. The intent of this report is to highlight, the process that we're following. It's actually twofold: highlight the process we're following, as well as give some really high-level concerns or pressures that we are trying to address as we move forward with the multi-year budget. The process you will see is very similar to how we've done it in the past. There is the added nuance of the strong mayor legislation, which we are complying to, but with your wishes, Mayor Dolan, we are trying to follow the same process with full council engagement and inclusion, and have those discussions with open conversations and debate. And that is, as you see, built into the schedule as well. We are working at a community engagement plan moving forward throughout the summer. So if you look closely at that timetable, there is a more deeper timetable that we follow as a staff. We work hard. We are actually starting now diligently trying to understand the pressures as well as potentials for offsetting those pressures. The staff will spend, starting now, spring, summer, and fall to prepare the budget and bring it to council for deliberation in December. We are looking for a January approval process. Typically, we would go for December. We are trying to manage the legislation of the strong mayors to comply with that as well. So we're bumping a little bit into the new year. The second part of that is the high-level cost drivers or pressures that we're experiencing. We've had these conversations in the past. Primarily, we have inflation. Some of these are identified in the staff report. Inflation, wage settlements. We have this large commitment for asset management plans coming up in 2025. We have a long-term financial plan that the provincial government requires us to be able to fund our asset management replacement renewal. So those will be built into the budget as well. We are noticing that assessment growth is trending slightly lower, so that assessment growth helps us fund our tax levy or reduce our requirements of our tax levy. So we're trying to manage all those things from an operating perspective. On the capital side, once again, inflation is a bit rampant, as well as the legislative changes, which we're still monitoring as far as development charges and things like that. So want council to understand we are working hard. There are significant pressures that we are, and we're going to work that in line as well with sort of change requests, our requests for additional staffing. We are a high growth community, and we need to be in a position to continue with our service levels. So we're balancing. It's a balancing act for staff, but just be reassured, we have started the process. We are starting early, and we should have something to council in late fall.
Thank you. Questions or comments for our treasurer, our CFO? Thank you. So our homework begins when we get our budget books sometime in November, and then we have quite a bit of time then to ask questions and deliberate on those items, what's important to us and what's important to our residents. So thank you so much for that update. All those in favor of the recommendation? That's carried. Next was item C3, and that was Councillor Drudge.
Thank you, Worship. Councillor Richardson's my seconder. I was just wondering if it was possible, could I ask a couple questions to the owners of Rustic Silo? Is that allowed? Are you okay with that? Okay, so we just recently, council received.
So Councillor Drudge, typically we wouldn't allow that, but
Okay.
I'm going to ask the owners if they are okay with that. If not, you can say no, and it can be dealt with offline. But typically we don't do that, but I'll just ask if you're prepared for that.
Your Worship, through you to the councillor, we are not prepared for that. We're happy to give some clarity, but we do have our planner online, which is IPS, so they will answer any questions for you on our behalf.
I'm okay with that. I didn't realize you had somebody online.
Now, I believe Mr. Garrett, Nick Garrett is the planner, and I think he's joining us online, so I just want to make sure he's here and he can hear us.
Yes, through your worship, I can hear you loud and clear, and happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much. Okay, Councillor Drudge,
Thank
sorry
you.
to interrupt.
No problem. Thank you, Your Worship. So we just recently received some photos through council pertaining to a couple of spaces that are on the property that aren't currently in the zoning request. One in particular is in behind the two smaller outbuildings. The space in behind there, it currently looks like and has been used for the purposes of the wedding event venue. Is that correct, that it's now excluded?
Through you, your worship, yes, that area, if you were on site today, would have some elements of decorative features for that wedding event venue use, but those will be removed and all operations would be contained within the zoning boundary. I believe is on part of the submission package.
And just the next area of space is also in front of the main barn that's beside the proposed parking lot. Again, that's been excluded, but in photos it looks like it's completely fenced and landscaped. So that's another parcel of land that you're planning on removing that's currently still in place?
So the area on the south side of the barn is to be utilized for the proposed private septic system and fire suppression tanks that will be utilized there, and all those areas that are pertaining to parking areas, driveways, those services to meet Ontario Building Code, Fire Code regulations are within the boundary. If there's any modifications outside of that boundary, we would be subject to Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority and the town's regulation, but we're not proposing any changes outside of that area.
So just to be clear, because if you look in front of the main barn to the south and the proposed parking area, you do have a substantially big area cut out of there. So you will be using that area, or you won't be using that area?
The area that is cut out of between the parking area and the proposed septic system will not be utilized for that type of operation. Now, there is proposed vegetation plantings that will be within that area and to the east of the parking area, and that is subject to Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority and has been encouraged by Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority to include those plantings to avoid natural heritage evaluation, which we have correspondence with LSRCA on that effect.
All right, so just so we're clear, those spots will not be used, so that if they were used in the future, it would be outside of their recommended proposed zoning area, correct?
Yes, any areas outside of the proposed zoning boundary would be subject to regulation and/or retraction of that area being used by the owners.
Okay, and so for both those purposes, though, currently, in the past, they have been used, and you're going to exclude them moving forward. My next question was about the widening of your driveway. I noticed that the hydro poles would be kind of right in the middle of the proposed driveway, and I haven't seen any mention of the utility being moved. Is there any plans to do that?
Through your worship, to answer council's question, we're not looking to widen the entranceway that's already existing from the second line. And if that would include a relocation of a municipal hydro pole, we would be looking to address that through site plan control detailed review. But however, we are not looking to relocate any hydro poles at this time.
So, sorry, I might have misled you a little bit there. The hydro poles that I'm referring to are the ones privately on the property that currently provide hydro to, I'm assuming, the farmhouse and the barn. They run on the west side of your road, and I believe the proposed rezone is going to double that width because you need to have an in and out for fire accessibility for fire trucks to get in and out. Is that not correct?
Yes, that is correct, that our proposed driveway will meet those accessibility requirements for emergency vehicles. Based on our review of the location of those hydro poles and our proposed width to accommodate that requirement, we would not need to relocate those hydro poles.
Okay, well, we can look at that afterwards. I have a couple more questions. I know that you've lowered your minimum person to 130-person event space, and that puts you into, I believe, 47 parking spaces. What would you, do you have anything proposed for excessive vehicles if you have overflow vehicles over the 47? Do you have a secondary location to park residents or, people visiting the event?
Through your worship, the zoning bylaw currently doesn't have parking calculation requirements for wedding and event venue uses. So the 47 parking spaces that you see in the draft zoning bylaw was staff generated. If you look at another closer use to this, which was mentioned in the public meeting as a banquet hall at 1 space per 10 meters squared of required parking, that would equate to 32 parking spaces, and we did lower it from 150 occupancy load to 130 to address overflow. And with the new proposal that you see before you, it shows a hammerhead for the emergency vehicle turnaround south of the large barn. Well, originally it was a circular drive at the north end of the barn. That allows for additional overflow parking to the north area of the barn that would not impede any emergency vehicle access.
And again, that's been accounted for in the rezoning, that extra space that you're talking about for parking to the north?
Yes, if that's necessary for any overland flow parking, it is within the zoning boundary.
And then I had one final question. So in regards to the farmhouse, we all know that it's been utilized with the event. Rustic Silo has been using it as a bridal suite, and you're now proposing, I'm assuming, to remove it. I guess I'm a little uneasy on that because I believe it's a great asset to Rustic Silo to have that bridal suite. I think every event that's happened there's 15, 20, 30 reviews mentioning this farmhouse. I can't understand why you would want to take it out. Can you explain that to me?
Yes, through your worship, to address council's question. That's a great question, councilor. There are some building code financial implications for changing a residential use to a commercial use, which would be for the bridal suite. At this time, our client is not looking to go through that financial impact to change the residential use to commercial, so that's why we've removed it from that part of our proposal. And should that change down the road and that become part of the use, then we would be coming back to council for an amendment which, should that happen, we will still be under the 2% requirement.
All right, so you're saying that if the farmhouse was included, that you would still be under the 2% threshold that our current master plan has in place?
Yes, as of right now, based on the calculations stipulated by the province, we are at 1.46%.
I'm sorry, I thought I'd read somewhere that it was 1.95. All right, go ahead, sorry.
It was 1.9. However, through modifications of the parking location from the north section, as stipulated in the public meeting, to the south section, to adjust natural heritage features and impacts to those natural areas, it actually lowered our number to about 1.45 or 46.
Okay, so I guess my concern is that farmhouse. You've answered most of my questions. I have concerns that we're going to rezone this evening, and those spots that are clearly still in play, they haven't been touched or removed, will be, tempting to utilize moving forward. And I just want to be clear that if those spots were to get used, that you would be in an infraction, and then it would be punishable by bylaw coming in and doing some enforcement there. The farmhouse would also fall under that. So I would really like to see Rustic Silo have some conversations with staff and maybe get those applications in, because I do believe your farmhouse is an asset, and I do believe you're going to use it. And I would hate for you to go through with all this process and moving forward and have that, to be frank, bite you in the butt down the road because you did use it for a bridal suite. So maybe we could refer this back to staff and actually include it, because you're saying it's under the 2%, to address that farmhouse and make it part of your event venue.
Through your worship, if I may address that statement.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I understand that may be an option. However, we are seeking approval tonight because we are very much invested in the site plan control process and our building permit process with the town, which town staff have been very happy to accommodate some of our timelines and processes, which we greatly appreciate. So with respect to that statement, we would be looking for council decision tonight.
Anything else, Councillor Drodge?
I'll let other councillors, if they have any other questions, talk.
Thank you. Other questions or comments, please? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. Most of my concerns were met with Councillor Drodge's questions. He answered. The main one I have is around the house, and because there's so many glowing reports and testimonials on the website about how that was a complete asset to the weddings. So my question is, are you saying that opportunity for the guests is no longer available to them for this upcoming year, and it's completely off the radar in terms of using it for overnight stays and bridal preparation?
To your worship, to address council's question, at this moment in time, yes.
Thank you. Other questions? Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just going through the staff report and looking through the questions that were asked, one of the questions that was asked by council on December 20th was, did the owner cease operations, or did they continue to operate when the town issued the cease operations notice? That question hasn't been answered. So I'm just curious if they have, and if they did, like what were the fines and consequences from operating still and going forward if this is not passed, like what happens?
Ms. Lee?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. So through to Councillor Richardson's question, are we speaking in terms of the 2023 season or future?
Future, both.
So there were orders issued by the building department for 2023, and those are still in effect. As we note in the staff report, this is the first stage in a process moving forward until all those stages. So Mr. Scarrett spoke to the fact that there's a site plan process that has to be completed. The building permits have to be reviewed, issued, and the work has to be done before the use actually occurs. So all of that has to happen. In the event that they were to operate before all of that work is completed, then the town would have to look at proceeding with the orders that are there and further charges to ensure compliance.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Ms. Lee, can you explain the use of the holding provision on the zoning and what that means? That's the H after the AG 35.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Dolan. And I'm just trying to go to that page in the staff report where we do speak to the use of a holding provision. And it would be on page 11 of 12 of the staff report, the second paragraph. And we speak to the fact that we are implementing a holding provision as part of the zoning bylaw. So essentially, staff are recommending an AG 35 exception zone, and there are certain standards that apply to that. But with the holding provision, it's a tool under the Planning Act that essentially says, while the intent of the use is there, until you meet the requirements that are identified under that holding provision, and in this case, the appropriate site plan, agreement, and building permits, you can't actually use it for that. So it's kind of a conditional zoning. And then when those requirements are fulfilled, we actually, it's called lift the holding provision off the property. So that's when the full zoning is in effect.
Thank you for that. And I'm familiar with the holding provision, typically like a plan of subdivision when there's not enough servicing capacity in water or wastewater in order for it to go forward. So I'm just going to read one section of the staff report here. It says, this zoning bylaw amendment application is the first step in the process to rectify the current bylaw contraventions. If the zoning bylaw amendment is approved tonight, site plan control and building permit processes are also required, as we've already heard, to rectify the existing contraventions prior to any use of the facilities. And I guess what I'm going to ask here, because there were contraventions last year, despite the fact that there was fire and building code contraventions, I'll use another property as an example. So this council, or maybe it was the previous council, approved a zoning application, approved a zoning change for a commercial property in another part of the municipality on the condition that that property implement a site plan application and approval. And to this date, that was 2-ish, 3-ish years ago, that applicant still hasn't met that condition of the site plan, and it's caused some issues with neighbors and caused me to think, okay, so what tool do we have? So if we approve this zoning on these conditions, that all of the building permit and that there has to be an occupation permit done on that building before there's any event, how do we make that happen?
So Mayor Dolan, I think the distinction is this holding provision under the Planning Act is not something that the town of Innisfil had used in. There are a couple of cases that I can think of, other zoning applications. So we approved zoning amendments, noted that site plan control was a requirement for future applications, but the zoning amendments were approved essentially in their entirety. And under the Planning Act, when you approve the zoning bylaw change, it comes into force and effect as soon as the appeal period is over. So after 20 days, if there was no appeal, that bylaw change is in effect. in this case, this holding provision does not allow the use, and that's what the Planning Act speaks to, until you satisfy those conditions and you actually lift that holding provision off the property. So it would then become just the agricultural exception 35 zone and allow that use, because we would have completed the site plan process and the building permit process.
Thank you for that. And I state that because, we've received some correspondence, both from the proponent, but also from other people that have said, this is going to bring economic development to your community, it's going to bring tourism to your community. And I absolutely appreciate all of that. But I also know we have to make sure we don't set precedents. So we've had 2 wedding venues here in the town of Innisfil that we have made follow all the rules in order to get their occupancy. We have 1 that we shut down because they weren't following all the rules. And for me, I want people to have memorable weddings, but I want them to be good memories. And I want to make sure that all the fire safety codes and everything, the building and fire code are all met. When you have a place of assembly, and I'm not a building official, but I'm staring at one, and I've listened to him quite often talk about places of assembly versus just a regular residential home. So entertainment centers, movie theaters, funeral homes, like places where people assemble, churches, places of worship. There's different rules, and they're stricter, and they have to be stricter because you have to be able to get everybody out quickly in the case of emergency, and you have to make sure that if they're in there, they're safe. So I have no problem with the zoning as long as there's an issuance of an occupancy certificate before use of any of those facilities permitted. That's my stand on this. Councillor Waters and Councillor Drudge.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to say that the holding makes me feel a lot more comfortable that all these issues will be dealt with before it's allowed for that zoning to take place. So that makes me feel a lot more comfortable that we do have some leverage to make sure that it becomes, like I said, it's a beautiful place. I like the opportunity to provide this economic opportunity in Innisfil on farms. I just want to make sure it's a safe place, and so that holding makes me feel a little more comfortable that all the things that have been issues in the past are dealt with before they continue with the development. So thank you very much for that.
Councillor Drudge.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm just going to be honest. I'm having a hard time excluding the farmhouse. So my questions to staff, can they put the farmhouse into the zoning plan, but the farmhouse still cannot be used because it falls under residential, not commercial, and they can work through those problems down the road? Is that something that could happen?
Ms. Lee?
Through you, Mayor Dolan, to Councillor Drudge, essentially the zoning would allow the building, if it was incorporated into the boundary of the exception, it allows it to be used for the event facility. So we would be challenged to then say from a use perspective that it wasn't permitted. So I get I think it is part of the character. It may be a future phase, but that may be the applicant's intent to determine when it's financially viable to add that back in. They can make an amendment to their zoning application. They can make a future phase 2 revision to their site plan. It's a revision to their site plan agreement rather than a whole new agreement. That is an option that they could certainly consider. But if we add it in, we would then be allowing that use. But they don't actually have the intent, it sounds, from what I've heard tonight from the applicant's consultant, in the near future to actually use it for that.
Anything further, Councillor?
I'd really express Rustic Silo to go back to staff. I really want to refer this back to staff for you guys to work out this farmhouse. I just really believe It's a big part of your business. I think it's special to Rustic Silo, and I would hate for it to be kind of dangled in front of you for you to, use it without permission and then get yourself in some muddy water. So I'd really like to refer this back to staff, and you guys sort that out and include that farmhouse, because like I said, I do believe it's an asset to your business, and I do believe you're going to use it. So I am requesting to refer this back to staff.
Do you have a seconder, Councillor? Councillor Richardson is the seconder, so now we have a motion to refer or defer?
So I don't think it needs to be deferred. I'd like to refer it back to staff and then have the opportunity to speak with Rustic Silo to see if you could figure out an arrangement, because it sounds like it would be under the 2% threshold, because you've brought it down to 137 or whatever you said it was. So if it can fit under the 2%, I do believe you're going to use it, so let's deal with it now and make it part of your venue.
So now the discussion and debate is only on the motion on the floor, not on the original motion. And that is a motion to defer back to staff. Director Lee.
Mayor Doling, if you could give me 1 second, because there's a concern that's coming up on my mind of what the public meeting notice showed for the boundaries of the proposed zoning. And if we didn't incorporate the farmhouse, it actually means I have to go back through a public meeting, which would take longer. So we're trying to pull up the notice so I can take a quick look at that before you finish your debate.
Okay. CAO Jershaw.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Clerks, just want to clarify, motion to defer is not the same as refer. So I think we're talking refer. Thank you.
Thank you for that catch. Other questions or comments on the motion to refer? Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. I guess my question would be back to the applicant. And my question to them is, what timeline are you hoping to hit, knowing if this motion got passed tonight, you would have X number of steps to go through, and what would be the impact of this change? I guess that would be a dual. What are you hoping for? And then staff would probably have to say what the reality of referring this would be.
Mr. Scarrett?
Through your worship, thank you, Councillor Ices, for that comment and opportunity to engage council. That would be very onerous on us if we have to go back to staff. We are progressing near the end of site plan control. We actually received some comments today that we're looking to address immediately. We're also looking to submit our building permits immediately so that we can legalize this use and put any contraventions to rest. Referring back to staff would add several weeks, if not months, to this project when we've been diligently working extensively on this since the start of the new year with staff, and they've been amazing helping us out. So if we were deferring to staff, it would have heavy implications on our processing timelines for this project.
Councillor Ices, is that it? Councillor Drodge.
I was under the understanding that this was all running in conjunction with permits and getting everything accomplished. I didn't think that the zoning was holding the entire project up per se. And I know that there's land works, obviously, that need to happen there, like obviously removing those areas that we discussed earlier this evening. Could you clarify that? Are we not working in conjunction with this rezoning and applications and everything's kind of all moving together?
So, just 1 second, Deputy Clerk.
We're just a procedural that the motion on the floor is to refer back to staff, and that's what the discussion should be about.
At this point. So it's just on the deferral. So I guess, but the question was, why can't you continue that while you're deferring? Is that your question?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, just because Councillor Ices had mentioned about timing, I didn't think that this would hold timing up so much as it would be just to kind of get it right, get the zoning right.
Director Lee?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. So I'll start with my first comment was we have confirmed that the farmhouse was not actually shown in the zoning boundary of the public meeting and what we brought forward. So we would have to have a second public meeting to incorporate the farmhouse, which means 20 days notice and before we can bring another bylaw forward. So just so council understands the additional time for that to occur, because it was not incorporated in what was identified previously. In terms of the other component, as we note in the staff report, we are continuing to work on the site plan application was submitted in March, so that process is running concurrently. The site plan process has to finish before we get to building permit submission and review. So that process has not commenced.
Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. As I'm hearing this debate, I just keep on thinking that we have a family that wants to put a business in Innisfil, and they've encountered roadblocks, yes, and now they're working through them, but to have them say we've stepped up to the plate and we've done everything as you've asked, and then to say, well, we as council think that, you should add this. I agree, it's a good idea, but what are the financial impacts to the company? Right, to the family. I think at this point it's a matter of letting them get their business situated, and at that point in time, once they have an established base that's brought up to code, everything's up to speed, then they can come back when they have a viable source of income that's not going to hinder them, and say that we're looking to add it at that point in time. It's a matter right now of a family's business investment. I just don't see the point of referring it. I can't stand behind that. If it's detrimental to the family, I can't.
Other questions or comments? I guess my comment on the deferral would be somewhat similar to the deputy mayor's, that we don't get to tell a proponent how to, what they should or shouldn't include in their zoning bylaw. That's up to them. We might think it's a good idea to include it, and I don't disagree with that, but understanding we don't have a full understanding, and even if we did, it's not up to us. It's up to us to say yay or nay to what the proposal is. It's not up to us to tell them what their proposal should be. So, having said that, is there any other comments or questions on the motion to refer back to staff? So I'll call the question. All those in favor of referring back to staff? 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3. Is that a no or a yes, Councillor? No, referring back to staff. That's a no. So that's 5 no's. So that's defeated. So we go back to the original motion. Any further comments on the motion as a whole? Okay, call the question. All those in favor of the motion that is on the floor? One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those opposed? 3 opposed. 4 opposed. So 5 to 4, that's carried. Next is item consideration to adopt recommendations from the Committee of the Whole. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Constantine. All those in favor? That is carried. And we have a notice of motion that is here tonight with Councillor Drodge to be considered. There'll be no debate on it this evening because it's notice night. So it will be back up on, when are we here next? May the 8th, and we'll have debate and consider that motion at that time. And next we have Announcements. Councillor, we'll start with the Deputy Mayor here. He's got a couple of pages, so.
Thank you, Your Worship. Okay, in the past events, on April 4th, many of us on council attended the Warden's Bond Spiel. I will say proudly, we did not lose any matches. We tied, so we didn't win, but we did not lose, so that's a good sign. On April 14th, we had a volunteer appreciation social at the Innisfil Library, the Lakeshore branch. It was amazing to see how well it was organized and the good souls that come out constantly to do good for the town, the betterment of all. Later that day, many of us attended the Putandu, the Tamil New Year, at Town Hall here later that day. It was put on, I believe, by the owners of Egg Smart. Very good people. It was actually a very nice event. On the 18th, we had a ward boundary and council review down at the Innisfil Library on Lakeshore Branch. It's good to see people coming out. I believe they had two sessions on Tuesday that were virtual, which is really good. April 19th, many of us attended the Lavender Floral 20th anniversary. It's incredible to see, a business take off in Innisfil and survive 20 years and still flourish and bloom, blossom. On April 20th, I attended the men's breakfast at the Innisfil Community Church. It's actually every third Saturday of the month. It's a really good thing. It's free. Just come on down. Everyone's welcome. Later that evening, we attended, many of us attended the Eid Festival with the Ahmadiyya Muslim Society. That was incredible, and I believe some of our female members of council still have the henna on their skin, which is really cool. Upcoming, I will be at Tim's on IBR in the 400 on May 3rd for their Smile Cookie campaign, and I believe the proceeds are going to the Innisfil Community Church, the food bank, which is like super incredible because they help so many people. May 4th, we have the Canadian Tire grand reopening, ribbon cutting, new owners, same business, but seeing how that turns out. And then that's it for now. Thank you.
I'm going to call you last from now on, so the other councillors have something that they get to announce too. Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. I wanted to report about the Color-Inspired Academies art contest that Mayor Dolan and I got to be judges on April 13th. It was a really inspiring exhibit. Young people creating art where they will show how we can better protect the environment through recycling and other means, and it was really inspiring and really difficult to choose just one out of the group that we felt all were deserving. So that to me, that was a real highlight of the last few weeks on council for me. As far as events moving forward, every Wednesday evening, there's a teen night at the YMCA from 5 to 7:30. On May 11th, there is a Spring Family Fest from 10 to 3, put on by Candy Entertainment. May 11th is also Police Week. There's an open house from 1 to 3 p.m. On May 4th, the Moondog Cornhole Tournament at the Stroud Curling Club. And starting in May at the Rosardo Health and Wellness Center, Hospice Simcoe is offering coffee talk. To register, contact Hospice Simcoe Community Support Office.
Thank you. Councillor Constantine?
Sorry, I have none this night.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson?
I've got a couple. So on April 18th, Councillor Saunders and I got to attend a local government session for youth that the clerks and customer service put on. It was really well attended. There's about 30 youth that were there. I figured there was probably about 15 of them that would be of voting age, so it was really great to see the engagement from our youth. Coming up on Friday at Moon Cafe, local favorite Patty McLaughlin will be there live. On Saturday the 27th at the Lakeshore Branch will be Comic Fest. It's the first one they'll be doing. There's lots of great little sessions through that. On May the 3rd is open house for the teen nights. My guy's been to a couple of them and says they're really great. So 5 to 7:30. So the open house is on Friday, the May 3rd. It runs every Friday, but on the May 3rd, parents could actually attend if they wanted to. And then just a quick reminder about pitch-in days coming up. I want to keep the Golden Broom in Ward 3. So Ward 3, please make sure that you sign up for sure and participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. A few things. April 26th is the euchre tournament at Lions Hall. It begins at 7 p.m. and it's $13 cash to participate. And then May 5th, there's kids bingo at 11 a.m. and free entry with food donation to Lions Hall. So that's 2 events. I do want to mention one item that wasn't brought up by the Deputy Mayor, and that was that Innisfil was well represented at a curling tournament where Councillor Ices, myself, Councillor Saunders, and the Deputy Mayor all showed up. And a few of you will realize that the Deputy Mayor did participate in a charity dance. And we all saw the wonderful moves that he had. But they are nothing like the moves that he had on the ice when he tried to save himself. So I want to thank him for participating. And I just thought it was a good day. Thank you.
And I happen to have it on film if anybody wants to see it.
Madam Mayor, you're more than welcome to come on the ice next time and show us how it's done.
Councillor Zanella.
Thank you. May 8th starts the beginner salsa course at Lakeside Dance. That's a 4-week course, and that's every Wednesday night. And on May 9th, Thursday night, starts the 4-week line dance course. So if anybody is interested in learning how to salsa or line dance, get on over and sign up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders.
Thank you. Mine have all been said by others.
Thank you, and Councillor Dodge.
Thank you, Worship. April 27th is a candle making workshop in Churchill United Church from 4 to 6. The Harbour House Grill has got their things in order, and they are reopening on May 11th, so that's good to hear. And the Rotary Initiative has put together the peace poles, and they are now installed at the Guildford Church and at the Legion. So you can go by and check those out too.
Thank you, Councillor. Most have already been talked about it. Just a couple. I wanted to say to Councillor Ices, I too was so inspired by those young students at the I Can Save the World artwork. So we've sent a letter of congratulations out to each of the, not just the winners, but all of the participants, because it was so hard to pick. And we're hoping that we can potentially display some of their artwork either at the library or here at Town Hall. So we're working on that. I just want to say, the Deputy Mayor talked about the Volunteer Appreciation Day we had at the library. I want to thank the library for hosting us in their amazing space, but also a big thank you to Daniela, our events person who coordinated the evening. I attended the Aurelia Museum of Art and History for a Lake Simcoe funding announcement by our Minister of Environment. And also I wanted to thank Councillor Richardson and Councillor Constantine for coming out and supporting me in my talk to the Innisfil Rotary Club on our strategic plan. They were there to give me moral support, and I very much appreciated that. We have, where am I going here? There was Alcona Glen had their spring walk this morning, so it's an opportunity for the students. They're encouraged to walk to school, bike to school, rollerblade to school. The school mascot was out there along with Charlie. They've got a mental health dog that one of the teachers has, and I got to give everybody a high five who traveled safely to school and crossed at the crosswalk and not jaywalked in the middle of the road. So that was a big, important thing for me. A couple of sad events. So attended two, celebration of life and a funeral in the last couple of weeks. One was for Steve Rayner. Steve was a longtime resident of Innisfil, an elder, or not sure what you call them, guardian at the St. Peter's Anglican Church, and obviously well respected because it was standing room only at his celebration of life. Also, if you can say that the number of people who show up at your funeral kind of tell how good a life you led, then I can say that Doug Little of Toserantio led a good life. Doug had a 24-year career as a councillor and deputy mayor in the township of Adjournment, Toserantio. He started the same year as I did in 1994 and was so well loved by his community. I got there 5 minutes after the celebration of life started, and I had about a mile walk to get just to the door and then wait for an hour to get in. So absolutely beloved man of his community and a really great county councillor and very much missed by our community. The Smile cookies that the deputy mentioned are available in 4 of our McDonald's locations. 3 of ours and 1 in Thornton. So if you go to Cookstown or Thornton, the money goes to the Innisfil Idea Lab and Library. If you go to the one in Elkona or the one at Innisfil Beach Road in the 400, the money goes to the food bank. So we could please celebrate those dates. It starts on the 19th, it lasts for a week, and 100% of the proceeds go to those. And also the 2 employees that are here, not here tonight, but have been with the town of Innisfil for a very long time, are reaching their well-deserved retirement. I want a big thanks to Denise Devenish, who's been with us, I think, 14 years, Mr. Parkin? Almost 13 years. And Denise is a really important part of Lee's team, and this is her last week, and she'll be missed very much. Also, Sharon Downey. Sharon has been here a long time as well. Poor Sharon had the job of being the tax collector, which probably wasn't always the easiest job in the world, but we wish her, this will be her last meeting, or this council meeting will be her last, and we very much wish her a very, very happy and healthy retirement. If you could pass that on, Mr. Melanish, and we'd appreciate it. Oh, I'm sorry, I gave the wrong date for the cookies. They start on the 29th at Tim Hortons. Oh, did I say McDonald's? Tim Hortons Smile Cookies. I think it's time to quit this meeting and go home. So having said all that, then we can go to our confirming and bylaw and adjournment, unless Mr. Drusha has anything in the good of the community. He does not. So mover and a seconder to adjourn at 8:27 p.m. And moved by Councillor Drodge, seconded by Councillor Richardson. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you, everyone who stayed with us this evening, and you're welcome to come again or watch us online. Our next regular meeting is on May the 8th. Thanks, everyone, and good night.